Tim Johnston is with us here in the studio talking about the next year ahead now, and we ended with the energy and the thing with the farmers. This is just going to be getting worse before it gets any better. Do you see that we're going to be okay? And how relaxed, not the right word, but do you feel that we're going to be okay? Let's try that.
We have to make sure we are, and but that won't happen on its own. We have to make sure that we're planning and we're doing things properly. I mean, we're lucky in underpinning our economy. Our economy has been growing. We do have reserves. We are lucky that way. But you can only spend money once,
sure.
So you have to be very careful how you do that. How you support.
Yeah, but
economy.
Sorry, if it's reserves or if it's money that's stuck in things, there's two different things, aren't there? Money you can pull out and spend, and things you got tied up. I mean, interesting.
Yeah, because again, you have to make sure how you target that and how you spend that money, because, like you say, some of it's needed for the long term future of the island economy, and for our future prosperity. And it's really important that we keep that and make sure we're carrying on doing that. So again, having like any good business, you've got to have a plan, and even however difficult things are, you've got to stick to that, and if anything, double down on it while you have these issues around us, which hopefully are relatively short term. And I say relative because I think we know that it is going to be a difficult time.
And we think there's going to be a major announcement this week that, you'll know about that, but I don't. Yeah. But something's going to happen, which has not yet happened, but on its way. What do you want to see done this year? Have you got any particular private members' bills you're looking for, or things you want to see done, particularly in your next 12 months, that you will be leading from the front, or at least supporting other people?
Yeah, I think again, very keen on seeing the consultations that are going out at the moment on employment legislation, on childcare legislation that the Department for Enterprise are putting through. Again, recognising that we are in competition with other jurisdictions constantly. When our young people are thinking about their futures, I want them to think the Isle of Man's a relevant place for them. I want people.
But it's not for many, is it? That's trouble. It's
no,
not.
And that's all. But the important thing is we recognise what the challenges are, and we put things in place to do that. And we've got to have things like world-class employment legislation and childcare if we're wanting young people and young families to stay on the island, and also if we're wanting to attract people here, which we know we desperately do. I mean, we have I think at the moment 0.7% unemployment rate, around about 300 people. Quite a lot of
unemployed are being employed, as they say, don't they? But that's not being disrespectful. It's just there's just not enough gene pool in there.
We desperately need working age people on the island, and we will only do that if we are in an attractive place and people can see a future here.
And do you think 100,000 as a sort of target for people to be on the island, is that doable and sustainable? And infrastructure-wise, I mean, that's the whole story itself. Yeah. We can't go and have water for ourselves at the minute, let alone another 15,000. But what do you think to this whole idea of the Island Plan, which you?
Yeah. I think it's the right direction. Again, we need to improve our economies of scale so that we can actually have the facilities on the island that people want and families want to see. If we're to keep people here, and I think having that increase.
But it's economically
but
active,
it's making sure it's the right structure.
Economically active people.
Yeah,
and of course your area is, it's a general sweeping statement, but you've got a lot of retirees, I'm guessing, a lot of nice, well-off people who live in some very nice houses where you are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not necessarily what the Isle of Man needs.
Well,
so.
I think it depends how you translate that. Ultimately, this is not necessarily an age thing. You've got to remember that there's lots of grandparents are looking after children, so that people and families can work. So, again, they're very important part of our society. So it's looking at it in the right way. Oh. But ultimately, we're wanting to. If you look at our demographics, we would like to see more people in that sort of 20 to 40 age group on the island going forward.
Let's talk about you now next year. You stood in for the Department for Enterprise, didn't you? And I thought it was an amazing job. I think you got patted on the back because you only had a few hours' notice, I think, to answer some questions in there.
Yeah.
You clearly have aspirations to be a minister, I'm taking it. You want to lead from the front. You look like that's where you're going. Tell me.
I stood in. Yes, I did. I think I'm one of the political members. I was asked to do it. I think Mr. Callister obviously had quite a lot on that day with the issues with the debate on the funds needed for MUA. So yes, I stood in. I wouldn't draw too many conclusions from that at this stage.
I can. It looked like an audition. It almost like I could see Alf looking as if Mr. Cannon was going, okay. So you wouldn't say no to stepping up? Oh.
It's interesting, actually, because actually, if you go back to my manifesto, I did say that I wouldn't take on a ministerial position on this time round. And,
I thought it just meant the first year.
I looked at that, and that went to my manifesto. And when I was then talking to people on the doorstep, people sort of said to me, "Yeah, not sure that's a good idea, actually. If you're the right person for the job and someone comes along, then really you should be standing up." And I said, so that's fair enough.
So you could be persuaded.
So I think we're in extraordinary times. We've seen 2 ministers go within the department. There's an awful lot going on. My view coming in was, well, Mr. Cannon didn't stand as a minister in the first 5 years. If you look at this time round, I think Claire Barber, Laurie Hooper, Julie Edge, they all didn't stand as ministers in the first 5-year period.
Didn't either, or didn't get it. I'm not sure which ones.
Well, so I felt it was a realistic stance. Things change. I might have to reconsider that. Yeah.
Well, have you reconsidered?
No. Well, I haven't been asked anything.
Well, okay. Then hypothetically, if Mr. Cannon says, "Okay, Tim, we want you for this job,"
I would have to give it serious consideration.
So you wouldn't just say no out loud?
No, I wouldn't. No, because I think that would be the wrong thing. Because I think people would say to me, "Well, if you're the right person for the job, then you should stand forward." Now, some people would say, "Well, hang on, you said," and I have to put that my political future will be decided in 4 years' time, so I have to make a judgment.
I mean, obviously, if you did, it would seem like DEFRA would be the thing. But was that too close? Is that not the place to put a farmer into DEFRA, for instance? So would you be better elsewhere, or would you mind?
I don't know. I mean, as I say, I think when I first elected, I said that going into DEFRA and having those conversations wasn't the right thing for me, really. Too close to the thing, and sort of conflict of interest to a certain extent. So, yeah.
So, I mean, you see yourself as a long-term politician, do you? I mean, you're already talking about, at the end of this term, this is it now. You're not going to do one and head back to subject to the electorate.
That's up to the good people there, and Michael.
If you had your choice, you would.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm in here for the long haul where I can. If I'm of use and people see that, then I'm happy to do that. Because again, I do recognise the importance of having this strategy, and I'm very keen to be involved in that process.
How do you get on with everybody in there? I mean, we used to call it a love-in, the first few months, but it seems still there's not a lot of angst in there. I mean, is that a better way to have these private briefings first, and then just go to Tim Moulton, almost like rubber stamp everything? It's missing the sort of cut and thrust maybe that it used to have done. By having it all pre-planned.
As I say, I don't know what it was like before because I was in it before.
You know what I mean?
All I can.
It's almost like everything's sorted out before.
I don't. I think, and you know that everyone gets the opportunity to have their views, and it's really important that is done publicly and debated, and it is. But ultimately, as a group, I think we agreed to disagree on things, but. Ultimately, everyone's there for the right reasons. And
with our energy situation, we're now right. I mean, are you surprised we don't have renewables and these sort of things, and using tide and wind and solar?
I'm disappointed. What I'm disappointed in is the fact that I go back to when I was as farming union president, and before that, as a farming industry, we were banging on for years to the government about renewables and the opportunities, and basically they haven't done anything about it. So we are way behind the curve on that, and so there's an awful lot of catching up to do. So we should be, in a much better position than we are, but we are where we are, and it's a case of what do we do going forward. Now, then you have to say. There's all sorts of potential opportunities, and we only have to listen to the man in line to get all the expert views on what we should be doing. But ultimately, there's a cost involved, and a lot of these things, in theory, work, but they're incredibly expensive. And I'm someone who is quite happily supportive of the transition to net zero by 2050. But it's got to be a fair transition, and we've got to be able to afford it.
So I'm just thinking, cows are a problem with their methane, but that's that's longer discussion. But
Well, I would robustly disagree with that
Okay,
one,
I'm sorry.
and bore you to death on that. But
Okay.
I'm happy to do that on
You know what I
another
mean?
occasion, because
I know.
that's not the case. But farming,
Okay.
if you look at farming in the UK, farmers in the UK have contributed a huge amount to renewable energy. It has not been an opportunity. There's not been the opportunity on the Isle of Man to do that.
okay, we're running out of time. So can you score yourself out of 10 for me, please? How have you done in the last year? Give yourself a score on the sheet out of 10. You don't watch these videos either, do you?
That's for the electorate to decide in 4 years' time how I've done or not.
And then I
But,
ask you about the government, how you're going to rate the government. So there's two ones. Do you want to give me anything here out of 10?
Government, I'm pleased they're getting a strategy in place. I think they've been pretty open and in discussions. I'm happy to give them 7.5 out of 10.
And you? Sorry, what was yours?
We can always strive to do better. So I'll give myself a similar mark.